All right, welcome everyone to the first episode of Chirping ZEBRAS podcast. And I'm Mark Riley, and
I'm Geno Binda.
And we are two guys that really should be in the NHL refereeing, but instead we're sitting here and talking to you about refereeing and hockey and all kinds of things that we saw. And
yeah, just about our experiences in the officiating world, and
Now, here's something cool. So I've known you pretty much your whole life.
Yep.
I've been friends with your dad, who is probably a legend in hockey refereeing throughout the country for on-ice and off-ice reasons that we'll get into at some point. But I've known you your whole life. Not only have I worked with you as a ref, but I've reffed you when you were playing back in the day. And you were dirty, but I never gave you a penalty because of who you
wouldn't get
were.
any more games.
That's right. That's right. Your dad assigned me them all.
I think the rule was 2 was play on, 5 was 2.
Absolutely. And my favorite thing was the night I did one of the hockey night in Boston, a huge tournament. Not so much now, but it was back in the day at the
Back in the day, that was humming when I was in high school. That was the place to be if you wanted to go anywhere playing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Everybody in Boston region, that's where you wanted to be in the summertime. And I remember there was a whistle, scrum, whatever. 2 kids got each other by the face mask, and everyone's like waiting for the referees to get in there. And I look over, Riley standing on the boards going, "Go ahead, have at it, center ice." It's high school kids. You're coming from what, like pro hockey at the time, right?
Yeah, I was doing the East Coast League.
Yeah, you were like, "Go ahead, I'm not breaking it up. Are you kidding me?" That's the linesman's job. He goes, "You two want to fight? Go to center ice." And I'll never forget that. I was like, wow. And then the kid just stopped. They looked right at you, and you were like, what?
You want to be tough, you better back it up.
And then off they went, and we just moved on.
And they my favorite thing is what they said to you on the bench.
Yeah, they were like, what's the hell's wrong with this guy? He's going to let us just fight at center ice? I go, yeah, why didn't you? He goes,
I know.
Nuts.
That would have been awesome.
It's almost like the time when you called the holding penalty on the guy with one arm.
Yeah, that gave me legendary status.
Yeah.
The kid was a great athlete. I think he was from Everett maybe, and he played baseball and hockey. He had one arm, and I'm doing the game, and I didn't even realize. I put my arm up. I go over to the box. Jimmy Pryor, legend.
He's the best.
Legend in high school hockey. He's behind the glass. He did every game back then. I said, "Jimmy, I got number 8 red for a hold," and he said, "You're shitting me." And I was like, "No, why?" And he goes, "That's the one-armed kid." Jeez. And I remember saying, "Well, I can't change it to a cross-check." And that kid came out of the box. He was like, "You're an asshole." And I said, "Dude, you dragged him down."
Yeah.
And the best part about this is about 10 years ago, I'm doing a show, and I meet the kid. And he was like, "You know how many people I dragged down when I played?" He goes, "I dragged 10, 12 kids down a game. Yeah. You were the only ref that had the balls to call me for holding."
That's excellent.
And so that gave me legend. People still talk about it.
That's
like,
awesome.
They couldn't believe it.
It's almost like the time you sent me a picture of the Leprechaun tournament.
Oh, my God, dude. You assigned me those games.
Yeah.
And you didn't tell me it was the, what was it called? The Shamrock Cup.
The Shamrock Cup, yeah.
And I did the championship game. And after the game, this leprechaun runs out in the ice. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I did was I turned to the girl running the clock, and I said, "Please tell me you see a leprechaun too," because I thought I was hallucinating. And sure enough, he came running out, and it was hilarious.
Yeah, a little pot of gold with him.
Oh, yeah. So I took my camera out for the second game because I had to get a picture with him, and that was I used that a few times on the social media. We should tell you about, we have a couple of sponsors tonight. Our first sponsor we want to tell you about is Moby Cuts. So I did this CCM Hockey House thing about a month ago, and
in Canton, right?
In Canton, and they had barbers there, and the 2 barbers were from Moby's Cups, Cam and Eric, awesome guys, and so they have a shop right here in Beverly, and we're at AOA Studios, by the way. This place is fantastic,
phenomenal. What
and
a great spot.
Cam's involved with this, so he's one of the barbers over at Moby Cuts, so you should go see him if you need to get the lid busted. And
your ears lowered? Yeah.
Or your ears lowered?
My mother was a hairdresser. That was her line.
I love it. So they're one of our sponsors.
Awesome.
And so
we even got a puck for them.
I know. Now I gotta. So tell me about, because one of my favorite moments was doing your first D1 college game with you.
So our good friend Luke Galvin, who you ref with, coach with, the whole nine, right? He hires us to work ECAC Division 1. And back then it was one-man system when men were men, right? You skate the building.
Right. And I had just finished the East Coast League.
And I just, I'm green as all could be. I'm 22, just graduating.
Yeah.
Just graduated college. And we're both refereeing that year. So Luke only hired like 10 or 11 referees, and we were two of them. And he calls me up. He's like, yep, you're going to go up with Riles up to RPI, do their blue and red scrimmage or whatever the heck they called it, right? So I pick you up in Braintree. We drive up. And I don't think I haven't laughed so hard in my life in 3 hours in a car ride in my life. Like, my ribs were hurting. I heard every story from the Coast League days and this and that. I was like, this is something I want to do.
Right.
2 years later, I'm down the Coast League,
Yep.
It's an absolute gong show, and all the stories held true, Like, you talked about your buddy Hammer.
Oh, the Hammer.
Yep, who you live with, and I got to meet, and, he's everything, you said and more, right?
Shout out to the Hammer.
Yeah.
Mark Hamlet, the hillbilly.
Yeah.
He Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and the kid 100% practicing hillbilly. One of my favorite people.
He never wore a shirt and tie once to a game.
No.
He wore the mock turtleneck. He'd wear a coat, a black coat,
yeah.
right? And a Jesus cross chain, like the biggest one you can possibly see. Right?
So true.
And he walked up to me one time, and he just puts his bag down, right? And he gets in my face and he goes, Hammer, you nailed the game, but you didn't wear a tie. Right? And I just sat on that for a second. I was like, the hell did he mean by that?
There were some characters down there, man. There were some serious characters down there.
He was great. You told me stories about him, your buddy Johnny O'Brien, and just all the, all the war stories you guys had on the ice, and the, all the games you guys had, and it was great. It was good having you on the ice too, on the line side, right? Like, I'm refereeing, and we're out there. I'm new, college hockey, Division I. It's fast paced, and to have a veteran out there with you on the lines as I'm refereeing was fantastic, right? Like, I felt so comfortable because anything that happened, I knew you had my back, right?
Right.
And there's nothing like refereeing out there, being a team, being partners, and you go to war together because it's just 3 years or 2 years sometimes, right? And you need to support each other. You need to have each other's backs because no one else is gonna. You got however many people in the stands yelling at you, the coaches, players, everyone's against you, right?
I always say you could be perfect at your job as a referee, and someone still thinks you suck.
Yeah.
Right. And who said it best? There's always 3 teams in every game, and we're one of them. Mm-hmm. I suck as a linesman, though. I was not. Horrible. I was terrible. I had a referee because linesman was too black and white.
I didn't like calling off sides. I didn't like getting killed on the blue line. I needed to be moving. I like skating the building. I really like the one-man system and old school. Man, now everything's 4-man, but it's good. It's so fast. You need the 4 now.
What's crazy? So what's cool about our backgrounds are similar but different. We both played college hockey. I played at Curry.
I played at Salve, Regina.
Yep.
Newport, Rhode Island. Great place to go to school, by the way.
Nice plug. Yeah. Right, Curry's good too, but I won't say anything. No, I had a blast there. It was a good time, and I hadn't refereed until I was about 23. I hurt my back my senior year and got into refereeing. My brother Steven was reffing for years.
Still reffing for us.
Still reffing, and although I think he was talking about retiring the last couple of years, but I don't think he will. No. But he got me into it, and off. My first year actually reffing was out in the USHL with Chris Rooney. Who's number 5 in the NHL. And for our money, the best referee in the NHL, not just because he's from Southie, but he's awesome. But you were reffing at what, age 9?
No, I was 11. I was 11, right? Now there's laws to it. You got to be 14. But I was 11 years old, and now that you just said that, remember the Mayor's Cup? They had the Mayor's Cup, right? It was Charlestown, Southie, Dot, and they had it right around Christmas time. And I was reffing with my father doing my first handful of games, right? Southie, Charlestown. I forget the scenario, but whatever call I decided to go with went against Southie, right? So I'm picking the puck up, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's booing me, yelling and screaming. And I'm 11 years old, no idea what's going on. My father hands me the puck and goes, hey, congratulations, kid. And I'm like, on what? He goes, your first boo.
That's hilarious.
And I'm like, all right, I'm in it.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, I mean, that's all. You just can't let it bother you nowadays, right? That stuff's happened, and it's still here today. It's never gone away. It's all the same. But now with social media and everything, you get all the hoopah. Everything's blown up to
Everything's on video.
Yeah, everything's on video now. Everything's
Yeah.
just,
If there was video back in the day, I probably would have been in more trouble than I did get into. So
yeah, right. Like I always say, the reason I haven't really been reffing is because I don't want to end up on YouTube. And back then I would have ended up on YouTube.
I got a question for you guys.
Oh, Josh,
Hey,
our
Josh.
our
How's it
producer,
going?
third man.
Where'd this guy come from? So, Riley, you kind of just answered it a little bit, how you got into it, but what made you guys want to ref? Because, like you said, someone's always mad at you. It seems like such a
Thankless job.
Yeah, thankless job or stressful job. And, when I was playing, I was like, there's no way I would want to be doing that. And, number one, too much ADD. I'd probably forget to pay attention. But... what did you think of that when you were playing? I might like to ref.
Never.
Or was it?
I hated
a lot
refs.
of. I feel like a lot of refs were tough guys too.
Yeah, no, I hated refs, and I think the only person dirtier as a player that became a ref was you.
Yeah.
But I never thought about it until I hurt my back and couldn't play anymore, and realized I want to stay involved. It's a sport. I mean, hockey it's in your blood, right? And so I didn't want to get away from the sport. And it gave me an opportunity to stay involved, stay in the ice, and make a career out of it. I mean, I worked full time for 6 years, I think, and got hired by the NHL, and then fired a week later. But it happened. But yeah, that was my thing. You started
For me,
because of dad.
I had since I was born. It was in my blood, right? Like my father was always reffing. He saw this, reffing as an opportunity to make it a company, a small little side gig, a signing, and helping develop the referees in the area local. It was small, you can control it, and it was something like he worked pro hockey, so he worked the East Coast League when it was their inaugural season. So he was traveling, I was even like a baby, right? And it was just something I was always I was born into, right? So it was always in my blood. I wanted to be a referee since the day I basically could walk, right? I was imitating NHL referees and all that. And my daughter's 8 years old, and she told her coach the other day that she's going to quit playing at 14 and become a ref. Because that's when you can start reffing.
That's awesome.
The coach was like, "Good luck with that."
That's awesome. Well, I mean, and the East Coast, what's funny is your dad had the penalty minute record in the East Coast League for a while until I broke it.
No kidding.
I think it was in 96, 97, Hampton Roads, Richmond, 304 minutes.
No kidding.
And it was absolute chaos. Speaking of your dad, our second sponsor tonight is Referees Crease. And that's your dad's company.
Yes.
Premier assigning and training
In
for
development.
referees and development in all of New England. And
Yeah,
he
we're
assigns
across the
from
country. Yep.
pro to mites across the country. So
we wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
Right? He wears a lot of hats. We have the Southern Pro League. I'm in charge of Division I, Atlantic Hockey, College Hockey America. He's got all the D3 schools, college club, you name it. And then all the youth programs. We handle massive tournaments on the weekends. It's absolutely insane the amount of hockey that comes through. And you know what? We're surviving. We're getting through it. Everyone's talking about the ref shortage and how bad it is and this and that. He's going on, TV this week, getting interviewed about it. And it's a crisis not only in this sport, it's every sport,
Every
right?
sport.
Every single sport. And we work up to the last minute to get games filled. I'm calling people every Saturday, Sunday just to get a mic game filled, and we care about the mics and we care about the higher levels and we care about the product, and all the leagues, they were all supporting me growing up and helping us out, and just giving back. So
well, Referees Crease. If you need a referee, give him a call.
Yeah.
And maybe you get me on the game. You never know. You never know. So we, what's awesome is a lot of people wonder what minor league hockey is like, right? Because everyone sees the NHL, right? And if you're a hockey parent, you're in the rink every weekend. You see the games. But minor league hockey is just a whole nother animal.
Right.
And I think back in the day when you and I did it, it was even more of a untamed animal. We both worked the East Coast League. You worked the American League.
Yep.
But the East Coast League was kind of one of those leagues that it was good hockey.
great hockey, yeah.
And the movie Slapshot, if you're not aware, was based on the East Coast League. Matter of fact, the Charlestown Chiefs based on the Johnstown Chiefs.
Working in Johnstown's awesome once.
No, it was.
It's awesome once. Every time you got to go back.
That
you're like,
rink, everything to the bricks is the same
Yes,
as in the
it's
movie.
incredible.
And what's crazy about Johnstown, I tell people, they don't believe it. You had to walk through the concourse
Yep.
where like people bought their hot dogs, and the cops had to stop the fans.
Oh, yeah.
And then you walk down the steps through one of like the load sections.
And you had to jump off yeah.
It was like a foot drop to
Yep.
the ice.
Yeah.
And then it was absolutely chaos. And I'll never forget, I was doing a game there, came up, walked through the stands. I'm walking across the concourse, and this lady was, standing there, and let's just say she wasn't going to win any beauty contests, all right? And she said, Riley, you need glasses. And I looked at her and I went, you need a dentist. And they had to hold her back. She almost rushed the door. The cops were like, what are you doing? We can't hold her back. But I love that league was just so much fun.
Those metal grates that just keep, like, they had, like, the ones that push, like, from,
Yeah.
I mean, that was great.
I mean, some of the rinks we went to were insane. And it
Yep.
went all the way, like when I was there, it went all the way from Dayton all the way down to Lafayette, Louisiana, all the way across to Jacksonville. But I bring this up because a lot of people wonder, like, was it like the movie? You know, was it like Slapshot? Was it like, the movie Goon? Was it like,
Yeah, right, right.
And some nights,
yeah.
some nights we had no penalties. We had like 3 or 4 penalties. It was up and down, no problem.
We had the Wednesday skate, the Sunday
Yep.
skate, right? Those are great.
There were some games,
Looks like
though.
holding it out of there.
Well, my best day was I'm one of the only refs I think in the history of refereeing to do 2 pro games in one day. I did a game at 12 o'clock in Jacksonville, and then we
Good
jumped in
game.
the car, Johnny O'Brien and I, and we drove over to Tallahassee and did a 7 o'clock drop.
Nice.
I think I had a total in the 2 games of about 5 penalties, and each game was under 2 hours. That was one of my best days in pro hockey ever. So 2 pro games, and that was 1 and 2. So I was in shape back
Oh,
then.
yeah.
I couldn't do that now.
No.
But some nights were chaotic.
Right.
And you have the perfect video of one of those nights for you.
So, yeah, I'll
It
set
was
this up.
nuts.
This is a great video. This is floating around the YouTube, Wild Wild Web.
Yeah.
So, Brian Lewis, right, former NHL supervisor of officials, right, he
Yep.
used to run the referees, and he was my boss at the time in the East Coast League, and he's happened to be at this particular game, which is great when you have a supervisor at a couple line brawls. But yeah, so Augusta, they were on the brink of folding, right, and they had an issue with a player on the other team biting somebody at the last game in Florida that I was unaware of, right?
Right.
So it's like, I don't know, what is it? Second period, about 8 minutes left. 8-1 at the time, right? Florida was crushing them. Florida ended up going to I think I don't know. They had a really good team. They won it the year before. They came back. They had a really good team though.
Was that the Everblades?
Yeah, the
Everblades,
yep,
okay.
yep.
They weren't in the league when I was there. They came in after.
I got a
year
couple of
after.
stories about that. A couple of good ones. I've told a couple on the Monday nights. But at any rate, so hostile environment, right? They're Augusta's kind of, they're kind of feeling the press that they're going to fold or whatnot, or things are going down. So, it's like 8-1 in the second period. I'm on the goal line, face off, right? And I see the center just drop his gloves and start throwing. So I'm literally, I don't know, 2 months into pro hockey, right? So
Welcome to the Coast League.
the month before I had a kick, so that was fun to deal with. And then, so I'm like, great, I got the instigator, right? I'm like, this is perfect. So I go and put my arm up for an instigator or whatever, right? Blow the whistle. Next thing you know,
this happens.
yeah, this happens.
It's just absolute chaos.
Absolute mayhem.
If you're listening and the video just shows multiple fights.
Yep.
There's guys on top of each other. The linesmen are trying to pull people apart. And
Well, we just got punched in the head. Yep. Like, everybody's paired up. We got a legit 5-on-5 brawl. Like,
Yep.
everybody's just going.
and
I'm just taking numbers. This was an easy one. I remember taking these numbers and going, I got 9 and 9. I'll never forget it. I was like, nine. That was easy. I remember those ones because they were paired up.
Right.
Like, yeah, like going through you only go through a handful of these in your career, right? Like you go
hope.
through a couple in juniors, you go through a couple in in the minors. It doesn't happen every night, but when you do it, you got to be ready.
I mean, there's just it's a full yard sale.
Yep.
Gloves, sticks, helmets. The fans are loving this because the fans, especially down south,
Right.
love the Rock'em Sock'em hockey.
So like the rule books are complex, right? So like you gotta like dive in and you gotta know like so call it what you know, right? Like I could have not
Guys just leaving
Yeah,
the
like I just kicked everybody out. I had
Right.
the initial, I had the instigator, I had all that kind of stuff, right? And then I just gave everybody secondary altercations and got rid of them all, right?
Now, is that John Marks?
That's John Marks. Yes, he's a legend. Yeah.
Oh,
He
Hockey
was
Hall
the-
of Fame.
Oh, he's the best.
He was the coach in Charlotte when I was down the coast. He coached the Charlotte Checkers.
Yep.
And he was one of the best to deal with. Just a class act.
Yep.
I'll never forget I missed a high stick coming out of the zone. Now, this is the 2 seconds later, right?
This is the next shift.
The next shift.
This is the next shift. Whistle down the other end.
And there we go again.
There we go again.
2 line brawls.
Yep.
2 shifts in a row.
No, I didn't get involved in the other one. I just took numbers. But you see this here? The kid slamming his face on the ground.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. And that's when I jumped in for player safety, and I kind of manhandled him a little bit.
As you should have.
Yeah.
Right?
Like I wasn't too happy with him. But
Now,
any
the
rate,
goalies didn't get involved.
the goalie tried to. I managed it right away with him. I think I but the other goalie, he might have came down, but nothing ended up happening, which was a blessing, right?
Yeah,
Right?
my big line brawl, Hampton Roads at Richmond. The 2 goalies ended up fighting.
That's awesome.
They fought in front of the net, blue line, and center ice. And at center ice, all the other players were around them just watching. It was awesome. And
Yeah,
that
but-
one lasted like 20 minutes.
That's when
25 minutes. The
That's
line
when you
brawl.
hear the ding, ding, ding.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it was chaos.
Now, were you guys the lone refs?
Yeah, it was
in
one
these
man
lines?
system. Yeah.
So how do
One-man
you keep track of all the penalty? Like you're wrestling with that guy, you're not looking at any of the.
Well,
other
so I had a wall. I had a wall pad. So like I keep a pad, in my back pocket, and I have
Yeah.
a pen around my neck, so I can just pull the pen right off, grab the boom, and I already have home and away, and I'm writing all the numbers and
so you just jot the
circling
numbers down.
Yeah, like I'm circling who started, like that kind of stuff. Like they actually teach you that in like junior hockey. So like when you're in the USHL, like I've had a couple line brawls.
Yep.
In like whatever, a couple multiple fight situations. So you want to make sure you get all the numbers.
The riot now. So what's funny is I used a riot pad once in my career. All right, and it was in that Hampton Roads Richmond game where everyone's fighting, and I just pulled the riot pad out and I just drew a smiley face and wrote "I'm fucked," and because I had no idea what was going on, and I went over to the glass. I'll never forget. They said, "What do you have, Rob?" I go, "That's what I got." I showed them the paper and I go, "Call upstairs," and I end up throwing everyone out.
Yeah, that's what you gotta do, yeah.
That's
See you
all you
later.
can do.
Yep.
That's all you can do.
So like in between second and third period, Brian Lewis comes in, and he's like giving me some whatever pointers. And he's like, well, you could have like kept a couple of those guys in, calling them like instigators, and kept those guys in and all this. Started dissecting that. I go, listen, I was in survival mode. Right. I go, I just called it what I knew, and I wasn't wrong with what I did, but like he was just giving me like what else you can do, other options, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, my game, Andy Van Hellemont was my boss in the Coast League, right? And he was at that game. Matter of fact, one of the linesmen didn't show up for the game, and he jumped on and did my lines the first period. Andy Van Hellemont, yeah. And he got himself announced as like Wally Harris or someone else, right? Because he didn't want anyone knowing.
Right.
And all the players were like, who is this guy? Like they knew he was someone, but didn't know who he was.
Right.
And so he did my lines, and then some local guy who said he did college came in, did the second period, and had no idea how to handle line brawl. Like he'd break. I was with the Hammer.
Right.
Yeah, Hammer was with me. They'd break a fight up, but instead of taking the guy off, he'd just let him go. So like you and I fought, and then Josh skated by, and I suckered him, and then we went, and then you found someone else to beat up.
Right.
That's 25 minutes. It went on for almost 25 minutes.
You gotta
this
get
line
control
brawl.
of your game, dude.
And I don't know. I just threw everyone out. I gave everyone 10 minutes,
Right, yeah.
everything. And Andy comes in the room after the period because I'm thinking like, what did I handle this right? Because I had a couple in the USHL, but nothing like this.
Right, right.
And he walks in and goes, "Attaboy, Riles, fuck him, throw them all out." That was it. And that game put me in the penalty minute record, the book for the penalty minute
kidding.
record. So in the third period, a kid that played for Richmond, Kimby Daniels was his name.
Okay.
Not a cool guy at the time. Might be great now. I don't know. But I gave him a penalty, and he swung his stick at me. Going to the box, missed my face by like an inch, hit the glass right next to my head. So I gave him a game misconduct, and that put me in the record book. So later that night, we're out at the restaurant, the bar, where everyone goes, the players were there.
Yeah, everybody always meets up at one spot.
There's Kimby Daniels right, sitting over there. Andy's with me. Andy, he orders a glass of milk, sends it over to Daniels with a note, thanks for putting me in the record book, Riles. And I'm like, what are you, out of your mind? This kid's going to kill me next game. And he got the note, he looked at it, he looked around, and then he started laughing.
Those are the
And
best
that was
guys.
it.
Like,
yeah.
they usually are, like, the fighters, the knuckleheads. They're your best friends, usually,
Yep.
right? Like, I remember one kid, Justin Johnson, JJ, he played in Alaska, played all over the place in East Coast League. Then he ended up in Manchester, and like he was phenomenal to deal with, right? Like, nothing but profession. He was there to do his job. He was always courteous with us. You know, you'd think like, oh, he's chirping us. He's actually just having a good time.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, it's all like a show sometimes, right? So
Yeah, you're right. All the tough guys, the
Yeah,
goons, all were, you know, like I remember Lance Brady.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he passed away of cancer last year or 2 years ago. He played for I think he was in Birmingham. He was their captain, and he's from the Cape.
Oh, okay.
And he never let anyone mess with us.
Right.
Like never. And Birmingham and I, their coach was Dennis DeRosa, and him and I did not see eye to eye at all. But Lance always took care of, like, you know, if anyone, you know, he was only there for a short time though. The other captain was kind of I didn't like him, but the goons were always good guys.
They were.
You know, and there were plenty of them down there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like that, but that wasn't, the thing is, everyone thinks that was what the league was, what we just watched.
No.
But it actually, that's not really what it was every night. It was kind of, you know, but then, like, my route was weird because I went from pro hockey into college hockey. I went from, after the NHL thing happened, they hired and fired me in a week in August. Bad calls I made, apparently telephone calls. And so I went right into the ECAC, college hockey, and it's so different, right? Like, it's just a different animal.
Big time.
And the way I worked the game was much different than the guys who would come up through college hockey.
Yep.
And even like and the coaches I usually got along with, some of the players though, they were the ones that, you know, like they didn't understand.
They didn't get the joke.
You slash, he slash, we're good.
Right.
Then the third slash is the one I'm taking. You know, that's how we worked it in pro hockey. And in college, they weren't kind of used to that.
Everybody gets a cookie, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody evens it up. You know, we're gonna play 4-4.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll never forget that one of my first games in Quinnipiac, the kid slashed a kid pretty good, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I called them all. I blew the whistle. I called them all. I said, hey, don't be hitting people you stick like that. I did that 100 times in the Coast League, right? And most of the guys that tap you on the shin say, yeah, okay, no
Thanks for the
worries,
heads
stripes,
up. Yeah,
right?
done, yeah.
This kid says, go fuck yourself. So I was like, oh, really? So I let him go. Next shift, he got hit in the back with a cross check in front of the net. I mean, head snap, flying, everything. Major penalty all day, right? I got nothing, you know? And whistle came right over me. Why didn't you call that? And I was just like, listen, I'm sorry I missed it. I was too busy in the corner fucking myself, right? He didn't know what to do.
Did he tell Rand?
Of course. He runs over to Rand, tells his coach. The coach calls me over. He's like, you can't talk to my players like that. I'm like, why can they talk to me like that?
Right.
And then he's like, you can't say it. I end up telling him to go fuck himself, which was unusual for me because I never, as you know,
Right.
I never swear on the ice.
No.
I never swear at players, never swear at coaches. Andy taught me this, right?
Right.
And that night, when I said that to him, and then I may or may not have threatened to knock his teeth down his throat in front of all his fans. All right, I did. And I knew right away I needed to take a break.
Yeah.
I needed, because I was, as much as I, came to terms with what happened with, the NHL, you spend 6 years working for something, you get it, and then it's taken away.
Right.
I was kind of bitter. And that's when I took, I took 10 years off and just coached.
See, a lot of guys that I came up with in the pros, like a handful of us hung on, and we went to the NCHC and worked for Don Adam and had a great time. I love the 5-6 years I spent in that league working with all those guys, and a lot of them are still working. But a lot of guys just say, "Hey, screw it, I'm done." Right? College hockey's such a great opportunity. Like I always wanted to play in the bean pot. Right. Never got to. Right. Wasn't good enough. I ref 2 of them. Right. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that
in your
is cool.
hometown, bean pot, that's BUBC, that's what you grow up going. I never missed one with my grandfather my whole life. Always went.
Now I got to bring this up because I don't know anyone that will be able to do this. But your last year, so you retired last year from reffing.
Yes.
Right.
Well, yeah. Last year was my first full season off the ice.
Right.
Yeah.
Now your last season, not only do you do the Bean Pot final,
Yeah.
you do the Hockey East final,
Yeah.
and you do the NCAA final,
National championship.
national championship, all at the Garden.
Yep.
All in your hometown,
was awesome.
in your backyard. I don't know any refs that could pull that off, or say that they ended their career with those 3 tournaments. And I mean, those
Oh, it was a
those
great
are the
run,
3
yeah.
big. That's
Yeah.
the 3 big ones, right?
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
It was very special, and I was very fortunate and just put it in the right spot, the right time, and like anytime you get those important assignments, like the stars got to align,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you got it's almost like wait your turn, right? Like
Yep.
you gotta pay your dues. Nobody wants to pay their dues anymore, right? Like everybody
No.
wants everything yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So like
Well, everyone gets a trophy.
Right, everybody
That's
gets a
why
trophy,
everyone grows
right.
up now getting a trophy and thinks, I just got to show up, and that's why, and half the time that's what happens in this business now, right? Like, gone are the days you had to work your way up through the juniors and then the minors, and then you got your shot in the American League or the NHL,
Right.
Right, and you worked. So by the time you got to the NHL, you had 6, 7, 8 years of
called
experience.
experience, right? You
Right?
can't teach experience.
No.
Like these kids don't
No.
they don't want to go through the steps to get the experience,
Right.
right? Like I'm seeing mistakes right now. I'm running college hockey games, right? I'm seeing mistakes that guys shouldn't be making
Shouldn't
on the
be
lines,
made.
right?
No.
Like shot comes from the right side, where's the face off?
Right.
Like the referee's like, why am I standing here with the face off? Like you should be over there,
Right,
Like
right.
just like little things like that. Like you got to be like, come on.
But even the NHL now, like even if we look at the NHL, the model they're using is grabbing ex-players, right? They're plucking ex-players out of the American League, out of Europe,
Yep.
and then just throwing them right in.
So did you
Right
see
into
that
American
icing the
League.
other day with what was it, Hathaway smoked the kid?
Oh,
Right?
yeah,
On
yeah.
the late whistle.
Yep.
Right. So like
That shouldn't happen.
that should never happen at that level ever.
No.
And that was the kid's 10th game.
Right.
Like that was the linesman's 10th game, and now you get that hit. It's late. Boom.
Yep.
And when I first introduced in college into pro hockey, Brian Lewis sat me down. I had breakfast with him, right? And he kind of gave me an introduction to pro hockey. He was
Right.
like, "Listen, this is a business. These kids they're getting paid, and the GMs want these guys to play, right? And your responsibility is to be on the right side of the rules on all of it, right?
Yep.
So this kid just mucks an icing up. Their best player just takes a hit in the corner. Now he just breaks his leg, and now he's out for however many. Right now the GM's pissed, right?
Right.
So
Right.
like it's important what we do, right? And we got to be on the money because it's that we're paid to do a job,
Right.
And I always took pride in what I did, right? And
Right.
take pride in your craft, and people don't do that nowadays.
Yeah, I just think, and we'll talk more about it as we go, but I think the future of refereeing, especially at the pro level, especially in the NHL level, they're headed for some problems. And I don't say this just because
No, and we're not
I-
the first ones to ever even say something like that either. But it's just like like I work with them hand in hand.
Yeah.
Like I deal with some of that kind of stuff, and just there's no path nowadays. Like when
Right.
we were coming up, there was a path. You knew where you had to go and to get to where you want to be. There's none of that now, right?
No.
Like Johnny Grant just got hired in the USHL, right? They're revamping their whole thing, right? And
right.
I started in the USHL.
That's where I
with him,
started, too.
Right, so
Yeah.
Johnny Grant was one of the first kids I met when I went to Spooner for training camp, right?
Yep.
And we've been friends since, right? We saw each other on a honeymoon, the whole deal, right? Like worked plenty of college hockey together, a lot of American League together, right? And he was in the NHL for, I don't know, a couple of years, and then through the minor thing, and then his minor contract got let up, and they let him go.
Right.
But now he's he wants to make the development path and it better for these kids to come up, like
Right.
and have some type of working relationship with us, with college hockey, and and I can send guys out from my junior programs out to him.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a working relationship, so we get these kids some type of path. I don't know.
Something's got to change though, because you watch some of these games, these NHL games, and you just shake your head.
Right.
And you're going, and like I have friends text me, because they know, I'm a ref, and they'll text and go, "What? Why did that happen? Or what was that call? Or why didn't they call this?" And it's like I got no answer.
Right.
And I have no answer.
And sometimes it's veterans that miss it because it happens quick. It's fast.
Yeah.
It's live, and it's like I had a coach. Seem like, how come they can't get these major penalties live all the time? I'm like, well, we had 6 in one weekend.
Right.
Like, that's a lot of major penalties,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of pressure you just put on the referees.
Yeah.
Right. Like 6 majors in a weekend. I go from 2 teams, I go, we're lucky. You shouldn't have 6 majors total in all the games, right? Like that's not a referee thing. That's a so.
Well, and what's funny is now replay is a thing. Right? And everyone asked me, replay, what do you think, blah, blah, blah. I came up in a time where we had VHS tapes, right? We actually had a VHS tape on a VCR, tape the games, and I'll play some of the video at some point. When I digitize it, right? But the best was the coaches. Like now, coaches are yelling and say, "Oh, I'll go look at the video," and they can look at it right there on the bench, right? It's right there on like hockey TV and all these different things. Back then, it would be, I'm gonna mail the tape into the league, and I always said, "I'll pay the postage."
Yeah, right.
And but now we got replay, and that was something we never had back in the day. Well, that John Mark story I started, right?
Yeah.
That replay would have helped me there because as I'm going in the zone and I curl out, the defenseman takes a high stick. I mean, it clips him. He's leaking, and boom, 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 they go in and score. And so here I am. I didn't see it. And my linesmen were local guys. They weren't full-time guys. So when I asked them, I said, "Hey, you saw that high stick, right?"
Yeah, that's how you got to ask them, right?
Yeah. And they were like, "Oh, no, I didn't see it." And I asked the next guy, I go, "You saw that high stick, right?" And he goes, "No, I didn't get a good look at it." So here I am, and I have John Marks, Hockey Hall of Fame, standing on the dasher.
Oh, yeah.
The dasher of the bench, right? Just screaming and yelling. And he had that no voice like this. And John. So I had to go over and I'm like, there's nothing I can do. Like if I had replay, boom, it would have been fine. Yeah, I went over and I just said, "John, I'm going to give you 25 seconds. We messed up. Yeah. We missed it. 25 seconds, you can rip me. And then you got to get down." And the place going nuts, 8,000 people going nuts, and Marks was giving it to me. And I said, "All right, John." And he got down and gave me one last fuck you and walked away.
Off you go.
And that was it. Now, luckily, Charlotte won that game. So it
hockey gods are on your side.
Factor in. And after the game, he came in. He was like, "Rouse, I appreciate you, doing that." Because I said, "Well, I messed up, But back if we had replay back then, I'm glad we didn't though. I'm kind of glad we didn't because
replay's horrible. It's ruining. It's not ruining the game. It's supposed to correct an obvious wrong, right? So now we're going in looking at, is that a major? Is that a major game? Is that a head contact? Did he get him? Did he not? Like you should go in and look at it once and know, right? Like we shouldn't be studying those damn replays.
And I get goals. Goals are important because sometimes it is. We'll show videos on here that like. A couple of them we've watched, and I said, "Oh, that's a goal," and you're like, "No, it isn't." And
that Sacred Heart one that that was a good one.
It's not obvious, right? So goals, offsides. What pisses me off is, all right, if they go in and score off the rush, fine. You want to challenge it, and it was offside, fine. But if they get in there and they get possession, and they have an opportunity to get the puck out and they don't, and then you score in 45, 50 seconds later, and then you're challenging it. That's where I draw the line. Right. I'm like, that's bullshit. You don't need that.
Right.
But it's the way of the world.
Right.
We live in a digital world. Look at us. We're on TV right now, YouTube. This wasn't back in the day.
No.
You couldn't do this. So.
And you know what was great about YouTube? Like, so you said DVDs and tapes and stuff, right? So like, Master.
You had DVDs though,
yes,
right?
DVDs. I had tapes too, right? But I would send Luke. Send Luke Galvin in the mail. My game tapes, right? Like master your craft, right? So like I would watch it, boom. He would put them up, play him the music, throw them on YouTube, and beat me up, right? Like you got to skate that building on this, that,
they're
whatever.
Still
right?
out there too.
They're still on there. We can pull them up. Yeah, they're great.
Luke, my favorite comment. So Luke, we coached junior hockey, Luke and I together, and tortured referees as coaches because we knew what we were doing.
Right.
But he was a trainee in the NHL for a long time. He should be in the NHL, let's be honest. But my favorite saying from him is, "You need more cowbell."
Yes.
That was he'd come in and go, "You need more cowbell." And that just meant you weren't skating.
Right.
And you better wake up, and we'll have Luke on. We got to have Luke on because he's awesome. He's the best.
I was with him last week down in Newington.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's
I
right.
always reach out to him there.
Yeah. No, he's the best.
Yeah.
So
he gave a couple of lectures in the locker room. Some of the boys don't know how to take it sometimes, but like it's the honest, hard truth, right? Like this one kid, he had a little bit of a hard attitude, tough attitude in the American League, right? He's a linesman, young kid, and the veteran had said something to him, and he goes, "Hey, you're so and so, right? You work the American League," and he just lit him up, right? And the kid was like, right? Never, didn't expect it, right? It's a Wednesday in Newington at like 11 a.m., right? Working a junior term. Showcase, right? The kid leaves the room, and everyone's like, man, I can't believe you just did that, but that kid needed to hear it. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, how come you guys don't do it, right? If I was out of line, right, you would put me straight, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem. Like, we have newer kids teaching newer kids, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's what
like
it
no
is.
one's holding each other accountable, right? Like, if I was out of line or going to the left, right, you'd punch me back that way.
Oh yeah, there's nothing better than when, for me, like all the guys that work the junior and college loop. I suppose now they all know who I am when I'm in the locker room.
Yeah.
But a few years back when I first came back to reffing, it was hilarious because I'd be in there and guys would be ripping you and ripping this, and I'd just sit there and be like, dude, you don't want to do this. I don't
understand why people do it.
No.
This one guy did it to me. I was in Marlboro, right? You know how Gong Show that locker room is, right? And there's like 8 different rinks. There's different programs, signers, this and that, right? And me and Sweeney were in there. And Sweeney's down one end, I'm down the other, right? I'm like tucked in the corner. And this guy's just ripping my old knee, right? And Sweeney can't help himself. He's just like, oh yeah, that Binda, he's no good, blah, 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 this and that, right? And then I'm walking out, I go, hey, Gene Binda, nice to meet you. The guy didn't know, he was like,
that's awesome.
It was unbelievable.
That's what we tell a lot of guys too, though. Is it like you don't know who's watching?
No,
because we watch on. I watched these 2 kids the other day doing a game, and I'm like, holy smokes! Like, what are you doing?
I'm in the rinks now with my daughter all the time, so like I see guys, and I'm like, man, what are you doing?
Oh yeah, and back in the day, even though we didn't have video, every game was like Game 7 for us. We'd go out and do every game, whether it was Mite or Pro, the same way.
Right. And
that's just not the way it is now. One of my favorite things was you bring up Marlboro. I think you remember this one. That we're doing the girls Beantown.
Yeah.
And one of the kids is in the locker room. He's like, "Well, $50 game. I'm giving a $50 effort." And I lit him up because I coached girls that my daughter played. For from 3 to 19, I coached every one of her teams.
Right.
And she. I have a thing about girls hockey. It's like, it's good hockey.
It's awesome hockey.
But some of these guys
are unbelievable.
Look at it, and that was his attitude. And I absolutely lit him up. And he was like, who the hell are you?
Right.
And I think he called you that day. And
probably.
You told him.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what you need, you know?
Shame on you.
We don't pull punches.
No.
And we're not going to pull punches here either.
No.
We'll show videos of guys and,
show videos
different
of me
situations.
Beat me up.
Of course. We all mess up.
Yeah.
We still mess up. It's just, it's part of you can't be perfect.
No.
And I think that's one of the reasons why the video thing is kind of tough, because it's like we mess up.
Right.
And usually it evens out throughout the course of a game. You make one bad call here, you're going to make a bad call. It's just kind of like the universe, the hockey gods take care of it.
Right.
Like they just make it work.
Exactly.
And now it's kind of like, you're trying to correct things that aren't, I don't know. I'm a purist,
right?
Because I came up. It's like no one skating behind you, right? I came up in the time when no one could skate behind you as the referee. Right. If you let anyone behind you, you're getting lit up. If you went behind the net, lit up. Now it's like it's a common thing, and and it drives me nuts.
And like I try to tell our guys, like, referee live, because you go in that replay, right? It might not be. You might not have the view, right?
Right.
Now you don't have a call going into the booth. Now you come out, you're like, well, I got nothing because there was no video, because you didn't call it live. You didn't fight to get that sight line or whatever it is, right? And like the thing that kind of ticks me off is I just had a junior game, right? And there was clear two guys were fighting, right? And the referee calls me. He's like, oh yeah, I just gave everybody 10s at the end of the game. I guess you could have probably called 2 fights, so I'll just kind of let you deal with it. I go, so you saw it. You could probably pick out 2 guys that were legit fighting, but you don't want to make the call. I go, so you're just going to let me do it, right? You're going to let me do it from the chair because you don't want to do your job here at junior game.
Right.
And now these kids are the same kids that want to go up and work college hockey. They're like, I'll go and watch college hockey. I'm like, well, master where you're at. Master the level you're at to get to where you want to be.
Right.
Because when you're there, you don't want to make mistakes, right? Like, the show, the camera, everything's on you, right? Yeah. And everything matters, especially that icing in the NHL. Yeah. That matters, right? Like, everything you can't make that mistake. Like, that should never happen. Yep. And if it does, it's because you tripped on the way down or something, right? Like, it's just not an error where you freeze like that. Like, that whistle should have been hammered.
Right.
way earlier, and you should have made that mistake 10 times in a junior game, right? Not to say that's okay, but
it's okay to make it there because it's developmental league for both the players and the refs. That's how it works. But again, like we talked about, where guys are just getting put into levels that they don't belong in.
If you can skate and you got good hockey sense and you know the rule book, you'll advance pretty quick.
Well, that's the thing. Like you can look the part and you can skate, but that doesn't mean you can referee. Right. Like that's the key. Like you might have presence because you're 6'3", 6'4", because that's what everyone wants. I mean, no one had more presence than Kerry Frazier. He was 5 foot nothing. Right. Well, he was 5'6", 5'8".
His hair was another.
Right. Yeah. That's why I spiked my hair to get a little couple inches. But Frazier was awesome, and he wasn't 6'3".
No.
And just because you look the part and you can skate doesn't mean you know what to do. Doesn't know,
Well, you got to be a good communicator, too,
Yeah.
right? And I think he was one of the best. Bill McCreary was one of the best.
Oh, yeah.
Like communicators, right? Like you watch all his little YouTube things and like
Oh, yeah.
stuff he says to guys. Like I had the fortune and ability. Like he supervised me one series up in St. John's, Newfoundland.
Oh, no kidding.
It was awesome, right? Like he just comes
He's
in
a
with
legend.
a mustache. He just
Yeah.
Bill McCreary's. And like I know Mike. I know his son Mike. I worked the USHL with Mike, and he had a cup of coffee in the colleges for a little bit.
Yep.
And, got to know him through the years. Great kid. And, to have his old man come and, supervise me was awesome.
Right? I think that's what, like, when we think back in the day with referees, especially in the NHL, like, those guys were like, they were personalities. Yeah. They were like, how many people, you say Andy Van Helmont, you say Bill McCreary,
Don
Kerry Frazier, Don
right?
Koharski, right? Don Van Massenhoven.
Paul Stewart,
all the
big personality.
Paul Stewart, or even like Kevin Collins, right? Like some of the linesmen, right?
Brian Murphy.
Ron Asseltine. He supervised in the East Coast League when I was there.
How
He was the guy
Leon
that
Stickle?
buried the guy, Leon Stickle. He was like 100, right? He was huge.
Dude, his hand would swallow you out. Like he was just a.
Well, now Ron Asseltine, if you remember, he was the guy who buried the guy who jumped on the
on
ice in the garden.
Yes.
Going out, I think it was McCreary. He was reffing.
Yes, it was.
And he smoked the guy into the
did.
boards. But those guys were like, they were like,
You were characters.
you knew who they were.
Yes.
And they had character. And everyone knew when McCreary was in the building, this is the way the game was going to call. If Van Hellemont was calling, this was what was going to happen.
Yep.
Like, and now, especially with two refs, right? It's not the same because you got
very
two
generic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just different now because those guys were like icons.
Like Wes McCauley has a personality, right? Like he has that flair. Like if a rookie went and try to do what he did, would not fly, right? Like same thing if I try to do what Terry Koharski did in the American League, would not fly. The way he talked to coaches, benches, players, I could never do that. Right?
Well,
I would never be at his level.
But to point out, Wes started with one-man system.
Right.
Ruins started in one-man system. Those are the two of the best, I think, in the league.
Yeah.
And they both worked the 1 and 2.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying the 1 and 2 is better because, it's a faster game. Another set of eyes helps. But that consistency isn't there.
Well, the consistency and reffing on your own, right? Like having to make a decision. You're not relying on your partner. Like I get pitched all the time. Hey, why don't we bring back the 2 and 1? I'm like, why?
I hate the 2 and 1.
Well, even two officials, even 4-man in the juniors is stupid.
Right.
Because to me, that weaker official is just going to rely on that high guy anyway. The veteran guy is going to be making all the calls and decisions anyway.
Right.
So you might as well stick the veteran on the lines, let the young kid ref and develop them that way.
Yep.
Right. So
well, you can tell guys who worked 3-man and who didn't.
Right.
I mean, coming up through the ranks, you can tell because like you said, you're out there alone, and you got to make a decision. There's no one, you talk to your linesman, but most of the time it's you.
Right.
And that changes plus I'm going to miss something over here. I'm going to miss something down there. It all evens out.
And you got to learn how to, and you automatically become a good communicator. Because you're the only one that has to go to talk to the coaches. You're commanding the whole game, your entire show, right? So it's almost, you're forced to answer questions that you're like, and then like a lot of guys just stumble over. Oh, how come the referee didn't come over to me? I'm like, because he probably didn't know what the hell to say. Right. You know what I mean? Like he probably didn't know the answer.
Right.
And so I'm just avoiding it, and I'll just take some heat.
And not for nothing. You don't like working with everyone.
No.
Right? I mean, I might have a different way of calling a game than my partner.
Right.
And if it's that different, we have to work harder to be on the same page and be consistent, because a penalty down his end or her end should be a penalty down my end.
Right.
But it might not necessarily be the case. And it's not like we work with the same guy every time.
Right.
For obvious reasons. Logistically, it's almost impossible to keep the same 4 guys, or at least the same 2 guys together.
Right.
But it makes a huge difference if you're working with someone that I remember coming from my first couple college games were in D2. Doing Norwich and
Middlebury.
Middlebury.
Those schools are awesome.
And one of the first games I did, I had a partner. It was 2-1 system.
Yep.
And him and I didn't see eye to eye.
Right.
And it made it for an awkward in between periods, because I may or may not have thrown my helmet at him in the locker room, and we drove up together to Norwich. So it was like, we didn't see eye to eye. So it's an interesting conversation, and to get different people's thoughts on it. But personally, I like the 1 and 2.
Same.
Yeah.
So do you guys think that, like, I know the game's faster and there's more rules and stuff, so it might help to have another set of eyes out there, but do you think when you have another ref out there, maybe, like, for some of the refs, it makes them, like, a little bit lazier, because they're like, well, if I missed it, the other guy might see it. And like
100%.
when you're the only ref, you got to be laser focused, like it's all on me.
So, like, I was reffing a college game, right? I was with one of the top college officials around, right? I was with him, right? He's the high guy. He's looking right down the pike at a like a hook, right? Like, he'll probably have the best advantage of it. And I'm the low guy. I know what happened. Like, one man, like, you guess sometimes, but you're not supposed to, right? Like, what the hell happened, and that's a penalty. So I see it, I react to it, and then I look up, his arm's not up, and I'm like, oh, did I just mess this up? And it wasn't. I skate by him. He goes, hey, good thing you just put your arm up. He goes, I was sleeping. And I'm like, oh, perfect, right? It's that one-man mentality. You just see a penalty, you react to it. You're not relying, you're not thinking about your partner.
No.
You just react to it. So it's just like, that's why the difference between the one-man system and the four-man system coming up, you just do it, right? And you help each other out, because, like, I might have been sleeping and he catches it. I'm like, hey, like I've said that plenty of times. Hey, good thing you called that, right?
Well, and I think, too, it changes positioning. Like, both of us are positioning gurus, right?
Yeah.
And we both believe positioning is what makes the difference, especially down near the goal line.
Big time.
And I think with a second set of eyes, you're not aware as much of the front of the net. And you're wheeling around, you're turning your back, you're making moves that you shouldn't make, A.
Right.
And B, you're making moves that, you're doing it only because you have backup. And you're putting yourself in harm's way sometimes. I just saw a video of, I don't know who it was in the NHL, got absolutely bundled from behind because he's out off the boards. He's looking at the corner. He's not where he's supposed to be.
That's the worst place to be, yeah.
And just got smoked. And, one-man system, I never swung out and put your back towards the front of the net.
Work up the boards, and then if you do, you got to go.
Yeah.
You never pause there.
So I think that one is it makes people lazy and do things they're not going to do. But 2, if your partner makes a bad call and you know it, and the coach asks you, hey, what's up with that call? It puts you in a tough spot. You don't want to run your partner under the bus. But at the same time, you got to keep your integrity. And it was a suck bad call. So it's like,
hey, coach, he had a different sight line than we did, obviously.
Yeah. My favorite is, I'll talk to him after the period.
Yeah, I'll see what he has to say.
because what are you going to do?
Right. There's been times when, I wanted to chew my arm off one time in the Frozen Four. Hughes is coming down the wing, right? He's coming at me, and the stick's in there, right? And he just bites it, toe picks or whatever, and he's coming at me. Everything looks like from my sight line, my arm shoots up. They're playing Notre Dame, Michigan, right, in Minnesota. Frozen Four, my arm shoots up, and I'm like, I don't think he tripped him. And, like, everybody, like, even the announcers are going, no, this is Frozen Four, right? I'm going around, I kind of zip over to Jackson. Jackson just looked at me. He just didn't say a word because he knew, right? Yeah. I asked all 3 of my partners.
No one could come up with an embellishment?
No, nothing, right? Yeah. So they all, hey, just keep moving, because they all knew, right? They all knew. And that was the last call we had. It was the third period, last call we had the rest of the game. And I'm just like, man. I hope I just wasn't they killed it off. Hockey gods were with me. And, and that was the one Notre Dame school. But, like, they had a couple of the regional, they scored with 2 seconds left to win.
Oh, wow.
To go to the Frozen Four. Then they won with 2.2 seconds left in the Frozen Four to go to the final.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
It was awesome.
Now, answer me this, because I've done it in a junior game where your partner makes a call and it's awful, and I just call embellishment on the other guy to even it up.
It's a good one.
I've done it.
Yeah.
And now, granted,
Maybe
with
once
my
or
years'
twice, I've
experience,
definitely done it.
we could get away with it.
Right.
Not everyone could, and
No.
you don't recommend it. But when you're with someone who got a bad look at it, and it wasn't a trip,
Right.
and the guy went down. I mean, I've done it a couple times, and you're like, well, he didn't have a good look at it. I had a good look. He dove,
Right.
And I used to use the Greg Louganis line. But everyone's too young now. He was a diver back in like the 80s.
It went over my head.
Yeah, no. he was like the best American diver ever, Greg Louganis. Now you just got to change it to like, hey, maybe the Olympic team's looking for some players on the diving team,
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, so this is cool. We're
This
going to
is
be
awesome.
doing this
What a
every
great
week.
studio this is. I mean, can't thank these guys enough.
No, Chirping Zebras, we're going to be doing it every week. Talking hockey like we just did. We're going to have guests on.
Yeah.
Not only former NHL referees and stuff, we got some people in mind, but also college referees.
Yeah.
We're going to have players on and, get everyone's perspective because everyone has a story about a ref.
Right.
Right? And it's an insight that not a lot of people get.
Like, I think we should get some coaches involved too. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Like, that was one of the best, guest speakers at any of those camps I've gone to was like a D1 coach comes in.
Yeah.
Just how we're perceived, right?
Yeah.
Just talked about how, like, what he looks at, like, out of a referee, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Good communicator, honest, right?
Some
Right? Yeah.
of the coaches we had down in the Coastal League, like Al Peterson, who played
Oh,
for the
yeah.
Bruins. I was with him the other day at a Bruins alumni event.
Big Al.
He was awesome. We shared more stories.
Oh, I bet.
He'd be great. I mean, we're gonna have a bunch of different people every week. We're gonna be here, Chirping Zebras. Your sporting sweatshirt
Yep.
with our logo there, which we do have merch already. Yeah. So T-shirts, sweatshirts, polos. We'll get some hats going. So if you're interested in that, you can just message us. We're on all the social medias, Chirping Zebras on everything. You gotta check out. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you like it. Make sure you like all our social media, Instagram. We're gonna be on the TikTok. All the people make fun of me because I say the TikTok because I'm old. But we're on Facebook. We're on all the social medias, so
We'll
you
be
can
doing
follow
some
us.
reels, all that, yeah.
We're gonna be putting out material, not only content, not only like from the podcast. We got a bunch of stuff we're gonna be doing, filming in rinks and stuff.
Yep.
You and I are actually we're gonna come out of retirement. Him and I,
Yep.
we're gonna come out of retirement. We're gonna do an East Coast League game out in Worcester. We're gonna
do
make
it.
it happen. We're gonna get mic'd up, and we're gonna have a blast with that. So that'll be coming up soon. We got a lot of fun things planned. Want to mention our sponsors again, Referees Crease. Again, if you need anything referee training wise or assigning wise,
If you're looking for games, we got plenty of them.
yeah, if you want to get into refereeing, reach out. We
Yeah,
have plenty of
absolutely.
opportunities. Your dad, Gene, can take care of him. And also Moby Cuts, our favorite barbershop.
Absolutely.
Right here in Beverly. And AOA Studios. This is where we're at. This is beautiful. This is what,
gorgeous.
when we first got together and started talking about this, we were like, where are we going to do this?
Right, yeah.
We thought maybe
We were talking like one of our
a
basements or
garage,
something,
a
yeah.
basement, and here we are in this place, which is incredible. So we'll be here every week. Chirping Zebras, Gene Binda, Mark Riley, and we'll see you next time.